It's incredible, right? I will allow more migrants to pick fruit. But I obviously there are still quite a lot of people to whom this sort of rhetoric appeals. So you vote to stop people coming here, and that's a winner. So what are you going to do? I'm going to stop people coming here. All right. And then 6 years later, what are you going to do? I'm going to help people come here. And that's a winner as well. These are the same people. I mean, expect, well, we'll have more control over these people, then they're going to be less likely to come. And also, but anyway, there it is. This is the hot new proposal. I suppose they could call it liberty of motion, couldn't they? So it's a liberty of motion for foreign workers, more liberty and more motion of foreign, as long as they don't call it freedom of movement, because that's a bad thing. But Liz Truss will allow more migrants to pick fruit. Do you know, I hate two words in that paragraph. I hate the word migrant. I don't see what's wrong with the word humans or foreign humans, foreigners. Migrant seems to be a word that the British media has deployed to somehow sound even more disapproving than when they use the word foreigners, which is bizarre when you think about it. And I hate the word unskilled, actually. I don't know. I wonder what the definition is of unskilled labour. I'm sure there is one officially, but I bet you wouldn't last. Well, I know I wouldn't last 10 minutes in a cauliflower field. Anything involving. I did a bit of gardening at the weekend. It took me 10 minutes to get up again. The idea of spending hours bent double slicing cauliflower heads off the ground, it's unbelievable. Unskilled. I don't know about unskilled, but there it is. So what they're going to do is Liz Truss will allow more migrants to come here to work, but your freedom of movement remains firmly abolished. Your freedom of movement to work across the European Union, that remains firmly abolished. And then we come back to Rishi Sunak's brilliant idea with regard to missed appointments and the idea of charging you a tenner. Let's accept the existence of a bizarre bunch of people who somehow don't attend NHS appointments for reasons, like bad reasons, not good reasons. And by good, I just mean comprehensible and forgivable. So, my childcare didn't turn up on the day. My bus, I couldn't afford the train fare. The bus didn't come. Here's a good one. I have lots of physio appointments, says Colette. At the moment, I live in a town, not a rural area, but twice my bus just didn't show up and I was late. I suppose, Daily Mail columnists would say you should have been at the bus stop earlier. But luckily they did fit me in. Thank you, NHS. And why did the buses not turn up, James? A shortage of drivers. I wonder what was to blame for that. Well, I'm certain it has absolutely nothing to do with Brexit or grant shaps, Colette. I don't know what you're possibly suggesting. So why didn't you turn up at the NHS appointment? Well, because my bus didn't come. Why didn't your bus come? Because there aren't any bus drivers. Why aren't there any bus drivers? Well, it's largely as a result of the policies of the government that wants to charge me a tenner for the fact that I couldn't get to my NHS appointment. Sorry, could you just run that by me again? Yes, we're going to charge you £10 for missing your NHS appointment, but my bus didn't come. Why didn't your bus come? Because there aren't enough bus drivers. Why aren't there enough bus drivers? Because of the policy of the government that wants to charge me £10 for missing my NHS appointment. I mean, if they thought this up on purpose, it would almost look like genius. Abdul is in Milton Keynes. Abdul, what would you like to say?
Hey, James, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Just basically wanted to just kind of put my 2p in about this, about, £10,
£10, not 2p. Put your £10 in, please, Abdul.
I mean, the thing is, I worked as an oral surgeon in hospital when I used to work in the NHS, don't anymore. But
what do you do now?
Facets. I'm still an oral surgeon, but I don't work in the NHS.
You work privately now. Fair enough.
Yeah. I was
going to say, I mean, that's quite a specific skill set. I was wondering what else you could have done to deploy your oral surgery skills.
Exactly.
Carry
on. Two things. I mean, the first thing, your previous caller kind of talked about Ibrahim, where he was talking about waiting lists, right? So. Yes. The kind of, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back in the stopping, that made me kind of leave the NHS is I saw one patient who basically was referred in for he was on warfarin, which is a blood thinner.
Yes.
And the dentist didn't want to take the tooth out, and his tooth was what we call grade 3 mobile. So it's basically waving in the breeze, right?
Yeah.
So I said to him, okay, you know what? We can just take this out now. because, we've got a massive waiting list.
Right.
I then get stopped by a consultant saying, we can't let anybody push in to the, so, he's got to go on the waiting list. So I said to him, okay, fine, we've got a waiting list, but it's 22 months.
No.
So I put him now on the waiting list, right? And I'm like, is that tooth going to be in there in 22 months' time? Is this guy going to turn up to this appointment? It's probably highly unlikely. And we could have just kind of dealt with it there and then. So I think a lot of these, without tackling the massive kind of waiting list, you can't, if you've got waiting lists that are going 18 months, 2 years, then how do you expect people to remember that?
Never mind the tooth. He could be dead.
Yeah. I mean, it could get infected and, whatever.
No, I didn't necessarily mean dead of the tooth, but he could be dead of a million things. The longer... It's only half joking, because I know what you mean.
And
then you charge it, and then someone's getting paid to track him down, to charge him a tenner, despite the fact that he's dead.
Yeah, and then the other thing is we have in this country like a really kind of toxic work culture as well, I think. And basically, when I used to work the out of hours service, we just used to have just men and women in suits just sitting there, basically just all sitting there waiting for, emergency appointments. So it would just be emergencies of them just coming in. And you just think, wait a second, you're fit and able. You could have come during the day, right? But basically, because there's this toxic work culture of being like, you can't
take a day off. They didn't want to take
off,
time off work.
Yeah, work is way more important to them than anything else. They will only turn up at certain times. So the out-of-hours service is massively oversubscribed because you just end up getting people, and you speak to, I don't know.
Just losing the phone line a bit, Abdul. I don't know what you've done. Don't know if you've been moving it. No, it's not your fault. I was just warning you.
I think I put my finger over the microphone, okay. But basically I was kind of...
what is it you do again, Abdul?
I know, that's the thing. Right? yeah. Well, that's the thing. My dad was a vascular surgeon. He thinks that, we're a bit, we're not the same.
You're doing the easy bit. You're only dealing with them. I mean, obviously, someone who does what I do for a living, you're a particularly important surgeon. So, oddly enough, to bring it back to Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, Truss wrote a book which called British workers, as you all know, being among the worst idlers in the world. But the people you describe may well be people that don't get paid if they take time off work, or
that's
don't.
The thing. I think if they went and said, you know what, I need this time off for this, and in effect, a lot of the time, it's not just I can have an hour off. It's like I need the whole morning or I need the whole day. They will literally just go and queue up, and it will just be like if you go to any of the dental schools in this country, they all have kind of emergency kind of things where the students are treating them, and the majority of that is literally just people who just can't get an appointment anywhere else, and they're just queuing and then getting that stuff. So you have that, and that gets clogged up. Then because of that, now I can't see that guy who's got a greater immobile tooth and now is on the 2-year waiting list.
How long would it have taken you to whip it out?
30 seconds.
So what? I mean,
stitch it up, so
was the consultant
maybe 2 minutes.
Okay, was the consultant a bit of a jobs worth? Not a jobs worth, but
no.
It's just that the minute we allow any wobbles on these rules, madness follows. We simply
I mean, there are certain cases there where you might see a patient in A&E, and you have to take them straight into theatre for something.
Yeah, but that's because it's an emergency. This was not an emergency, therefore you couldn't possibly intervene ahead of schedule.
Yes. So basically, you're seeing the patient on clinic, and clinic is clinic, right? Clinic is not MOS, or clinic is not. Okay. So you're not allowed to. I could have just gone to one of the empty surgeries, pop some local anaesthetic in, 30 seconds, take it out, and then basically we could. The unfortunate thing is the guy had already seen. He was anticipating getting that tooth taken out. He'd already seen his GP to go and get an INR test, which is a test to check your clotting, because he was on this medication. So he was anticipating having. So he'd already done all those steps, right? He'd had it done. He'd come in, and then we're like, sorry, mate, you can't come in for 2 years.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry I'm laughing because I have this thing, I just laugh all the time at certain things, but I kind of just...
No, you're laughing at the absurdity of the situation. I'm laughing too. Don't apologise for that. I mean, what's depressing is that it is... And I think it's important just to pick up on this briefly when you say that was among the straws that broke the camel's back of your work for the NHS. We forget that people are human, don't we? And you want to enjoy your work and you want to feel fulfilled in your work. And there comes a point where the pressure under which you're put and the madness of some of the situations that you're put into rob you of the ability to enjoy your work and feel fulfilled at work. So you want to do oral surgery. You don't want to be handing down ludicrous rulings to a bloke with a rotten tooth in the back of his head on what are reasonable grounds, but grounds built entirely upon the strain that the entire system is currently buckling under. It's scary. And Rishi Sunak's got absolutely nothing for people like you. He's not said a single syllable of policy that might possibly tempt people like you back into the NHS to alleviate some of the pressures that are currently there, or see you work towards a different model yourself. Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, there's nothing. They need to do a lot. They need to do a lot to tempt people.
No, I get that, but they could start.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that with all these kind of things, they say one thing, but it's like you're not looking at the cause of what's going on.
Yeah.
So, it's like, they say, we're going to give more money for mental health services, for example.
Doesn't matter. Like, nothing matters anymore.
Let's look at, what might be causing this. And you can't then say, okay, we're going to charge people for missing an appointment when an appointment might be 2 years in the future, and they completely have forgotten. I mean, I don't even have a diary that goes 2 years in the future.
No, so, I'm trying to think of the last time. I mean, goodness me. But anyway, it's 10 quid if you forget. So what are you going to do, Rishi Sunak? We're going to fine people 10 quid if they don't turn up for their appointments. There's a bloke over there that's got to wait 22 months to have a tooth taken out. Yeah, well, he's exactly the sort of person we're coming after. And if you think I exaggerate about how awful Sunak is, and I know, I briefly warmed to him. And the furlough was a largely good idea. And I know who's been the latest victim of the curse of O'Brien. I'll share that with you after the next junction. Thank you, Abdul. I resisted the urge to ask him a question about my own mouth then. I think that's a sign that I'm maturing as a presenter and indeed as a man. So that thing I told you, I will allow more migrants to pick fruit, says Truss. I mean, a staggering headline in all sorts of ways. Rishi Sunak's spokesman has now responded to it. Guess what he said? Which is genuine, I promise. I've got it from the Twitter account of the Human Pudding, who is currently political editor of The Sun. But it is true, I've checked. It's been reported elsewhere. Rishi Sunak's spokesman on Liz Truss's announcement that she will allow more migrants to pick fruit. I'm going to give you the length of the next junction to see if you can guess what the response is. I'll give you a clue. It involves the B word. I'm not joking. Rishi Sunak's team have responded to Liz Truss's idea that she will let more migrants pick fruit by saying that she is showing her true Remainer colours. I think I'm going to be using this phrase quite a lot over the coming months, years, centuries. And it's not my own. It's a Conservative source speaking to a journalist. When people believe in an imaginary river, you don't tell them that the river doesn't exist. You sell them or you build them an imaginary bridge. So, I mean, where it ends, how long it goes on for, is breathtaking. And I don't know what I can do about this. I'm going to confide in you briefly. I tend not anymore to get calls from the people that these policies are designed to delight. I don't know why that is. I mean, I could perhaps take it quite personally, but the idea that no one in the NHS seems to think this is a good idea, but maybe I set the topics up wrong. And I should say, listen, don't ring me if you're a doctor or a nurse, or if you've got any actual knowledge of what it's like to work in the NHS, or indeed the genuine scale of this problem. Give me a ring if you get everything undiluted directly from the Daily Mail and you don't really like thinking hard and you've got a very strong opinion about why this is a brilliant idea. The problem is that the people Rishi Sunak is trying to appeal to with this policy probably don't like being described like that, or indeed realise that that's them. So when we do it this way round, when we actually say, this looks like an interesting idea at first glance, at second glance it looks really stupid, and at third glance it looks downright dangerous, we're accidentally or unintentionally holding up a mirror. And everybody who's nodding along going, oh, yes, that's a great idea. We should definitely fine people £10 for, everyone accidentally catches a glimpse of their own reflection in the mirror. And the last thing you're going to do is ring me. I always work on a genuine principle that it's possible that we're wrong, that I'm wrong. Maybe there are very good reasons why this would actually work. Maybe, and, I have to allow myself the caveat that everyone we've managed to find in the NHS doesn't think, or indeed in healthcare, because our last caller had moved out of the NHS into private health, Abdul. Who is it designed to appeal to? People who don't realise that it's designed to appeal to them, or people that don't realise they're being sold an imaginary bridge because they still believe in the imaginary river. It's a beautiful analogy, that. I'm warning you now, you're going to hear a lot of it. Tim's in Uttoxeter. Tim, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello,
good morning. I just think maybe we're looking at these policies in the wrong way. You've sort of touched on it with your last comments there, really. Because if you take, the policy that Sunak's announced today, or the policy idea is announced today, this Truss's idea to get more so-called migrants to pick fruit, or what they said the other week, we're going to send more people to Rwanda and a greater range of African countries.
Yes.
And then I read a couple of days ago that Rishi Sunak's going to get rid of woke nonsense.
Good.
Whatever
it's about
that
time
is.
too. Yeah, down with that sort of thing. Liz Truss is going to get everyone with straight A's an interview at Oxford or Cambridge University. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that one as well, yeah. So, we could drive ourselves mad.
Oh, and Nadine Dorries is making jokes less than a year after David Amos was killed. Nadine Dorries is tweeting jokes about Conservative politicians getting stabbed.
Absolutely. So, I'm worried about your blood pressure as well, because you're sitting there picking these policies apart, looking for a grain of logic.
Keeps me calm.
And there isn't a grain of logic in there unless you look at them in a different way, which is none of these policies are designed to solve an issue at all, because the issue doesn't probably exist. They're actually just designed, as you've said, really, to appeal to the 160,000 people who.
But why does it even appeal to them? And it's not 160,000, is it? It's enough of them to win. Because listen, there must be some lovely people who are actually members of the Conservative Party. They can't all be the kind of people who cheer the deporting of innocent people to Rwanda, or the scapegoating of their neighbours as patients, or the abolition of their own freedom of movement and their children's and their grandchildren's freedom of movement. What is appealing about this then? Is it? So put yourself in the shoes of a person you've just described, and you've woken up this morning and you've read your Daily Mail or your Daily Telegraph, and you've logged on to your usual websites to find out what all those woke lefties are up to, and you've got to refer to blood pressure. Your blood pressure's bubbling along quite nicely, and then out comes Rishi Sunak with a deliberately designed attempt to appeal to your what passes for your instincts or your intellect, and he says, right, anyone who misses an NHS appointment is going to get fined £10. Why do you like that?
Well, first of all, I think it is a bit of an insult to the intelligence.
No, you're not doing it. You've got to you've got to be the member, the member of the Conservative Party. You've just finished reading the Daily Mail. You've just logged on to your usual anger-inducing sites. You're cross and you're a little bit unhappy, and here's Rishi Sunak with a nice little lump of red meat. We're going to charge £10 to everyone who misses an NHS appointment. Why does it make you happy? Why do you like it?
Well, because it makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Does it? Why?
Obviously, it's a problem. Someone's going to do something about it. And those people who are causing the problems in the NHS by not turning up, they're going to be punished, aren't they?
But it's obviously not their fault that the NHS is in such a mess. It's obviously the fault of the party that I'm a member of, so I can never possibly go there.
Yeah, but I can't believe that, can I?
So this is... Thank you, Rishi Sunak, for giving me an utterly bogus target for my own idiocy in supporting the people for the last 12 years who've done what they've done to the NHS.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, or people, I don't know many Conservative voters. I've got to
I know loads. I work with a few.
I don't know many, but one or two I have spoken to. It just seems, that you can have a discussion with them, and it can be, not a heated discussion, not those conflict, but you try and put a logical point across, and many of the things we talked about, and they just won't be shaken from it. And I think it's sometimes you
there's plenty of left-wing people like that as well. I think we saw that between 2015 and 19.
People. No, not at all. But I think sometimes you believe something so strongly, it takes a massive shift to sort of change your mind over.
But what is it that they believe here? They believe that they're just because they don't believe they believe they're on the right side. It's that simple, isn't it? It's footballification. Yeah. They believe that it's their team are the best team, and therefore the fact that their team have just set fire to the local hospital must be the fault of the patients in the hospital missing appointments, rather than the bloke wearing the same rosette that they wear standing over there with a Zippo lighter. You could, yeah. I mean, again, it's simplistic, but unless you tell me why you like this idea, then all I can do is speculate upon why people like you like ideas like this. It's coming up to 12 noon. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Working from home is back in the news as well. For reasons that, again, I think are really easy to understand. If you look at the demographics and the geography of the United Kingdom, then you will understand why working from home has proved more popular with British people than any other workforce in Europe. But apparently this needs explaining too, so we may have a crack at explaining that after this. It is 3 minutes after 12 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I mean, things that I was thinking of doing this hour. I want to do working from home because I think when the Daily Mail gets stuck into these stories, tiny though my impact is, it's important that you fight nonsense with truth. The other one was when Rishi Sunak talks about, as he's done now, someone's just tweeted very cleverly that we've reached the if you vote for me, we'll go to Disneyland every weekend stage of the divorce. It seems that Rishi Sunak's just saying absolutely anything now to secure votes, accusing Liz Truss of showing her true Remainer colours. Julian Suffolk points out that only true Brexiters believe that we should leave British fruit and vegetable rotting in British fields. It's showing her true Remainer colours that sees Liz Truss announcing that she's prepared to let more migrants come here to pick fruit and vegetable crops. Unbelievable, really, when you think about it. But I am quite tempted. We might do this tomorrow when Sunak says he's going to abolish all the woke nonsense. What does he mean, do you think? But we're not going to do that today. I am, however, going to squeeze in a quick woke watch because it's relevant to the Lionesses, and it's a story that is almost unbelievable in its absurdity. Okay, so it's time for Woke Watch. But the Lions are the lazy ones. Fans slam calls to change England women's football team's sexist Lionesses nickname, pointing out in the animal kingdom the female beasts do the hunting while the males sleep. This is, again, inevitably in the Mail. Some fans believe they should be referred to as lions instead of lionesses. Piers Morgan has waded in on the debate, calling it pathetic virtue signalling. Nadine Dorries said, God, all the greats. Nadine Dorries said the idea was rubbish and she is proud of the lionesses. So you think, crikey, I missed that story. Where is this campaign for the lionesses to be renamed the Lions? I know I was on holiday for a couple of weeks during this tournament, or the early stages of this tournament, but I've completely missed this coverage. I haven't read about it. I haven't heard about it. I haven't seen it. Let me find out more, and let me see where this has come from. Where has this appalling proposal been seeded? Oh, here we are. In a discussion about the game on yesterday morning presenter. Oh, I see. A radio programme that's broadcast at the same time that this one is contained one comment from one listener suggesting that the use of the nickname might have sexist connotations. And that is it. That is how the Daily Mail gets a headline. Fans slam calls to change England women's football team sexist Lionesses nickname. One listener. So imagine if, and it is unlikely to happen, given the state of the British media, but imagine if one text to this programme, in what possible world would that become a campaign that needs to be called out by the likes of Nadine Dorries and Piers Morgan? One text to one radio programme, which is broadcast at the same time as this rather popular radio programme, and so you could be very easily forgiven for having missed. And that is it. That's how it works. That is what woke nonsense means. And that concludes the end of today's Woke Watch. So I am quite tempted to wonder what you think Rishi Sunak means when he talks about abolishing woke nonsense. But we'll begin this hour, or we'll turn our attention this hour instead to the news, if it is news, that Britain now has the fewest commuters going to work of the big 5 European nations. The commuting is still about 35% lower than pre-pandemic levels. And the way it's written is reprehensible. I mean, it is just grim. British workers are the worst in Europe for refusing to return to the office. This is in a newspaper that is currently endorsing a woman who co-wrote a book containing the phrase, British workers are among the worst idlers in the world. If I live to be 206, I'll never understand how, when they treat you with outright and abject contempt, you still don't get upset with them. British workers are the worst in Europe for refusing to return to the office. Now, I'm fairly confident that that is not an accurate headline. Number one, I don't think people are refusing to return to the office. And number two, I don't think we're the worst in Europe. I think we're probably the best in Europe for workplace flexibility or employer-employee flexibility. And the new figures, which compare us to Spain, France, Italy and Germany, I presume rely fairly heavily on geography. So what I want to do is have a little look at what the reality of your situation is. I'll tell you what I think is going on, and then you tell me whether that's true or not. Number one, how many people are refusing to go to work in the office? How many people are refusing to go and work in the office? So everyone is saying, please, would you come back and work in the office? And you're saying, no, I refuse. I just don't think that's happening. The rhetoric of this debate is among the most ridiculous that we've seen in recent years because it's so transparent. If you have a newspaper owned by someone who's quite heavily exposed on commercial property, on rents and leases, on office blocks and what have you, then they're terrified of this fairly significant change in our working practices. Just think back to the football. Change can be epic. Things that seemed impossible 20 years ago can be commonplace 20 years later. So the idea of flexible working seems to me to be here forever. We also know transport costs are huge in this country compared to other countries. I don't have the direct data in front of me, but I imagine that the length of the commute and the cost of the commute in the United Kingdom is generally bigger than in Spain, France, Italy or Germany. And then you have the technology, the fact that you now can work from home very easily, and the fact that during pandemic, many people discovered, often to their own surprise, that it was quite pleasant. So there are two questions here. One is about why you are doing it. Everyone's gone down. Italy's gone down 19%, and we've gone down 35%. So, I mean, it's a bit of a new. France, it's down 27%. Commuting is down 27%. And there, as I say, there are two ways into this, the personal and, if you like, the political. Would the question be best phrased like this, then? Why are you still doing some of your work or all of your work from home? I just want you to tell me, because I think some people need to hear this. Why are you still doing some of your work from home? 03456060973. And then the second question is, why do some corners of the media continue to pretend that they don't understand this? And now we've moved, I think, beyond the people who really hated being stuck at home during the pandemic because they lived in shared accommodation or they were having to use a laptop in the kitchen or I mean that those are the people who are going to have rushed back to work at breakneck speed. As soon as the opportunity to get back into the workplace was there, people who hated working from home were going to go. So people who pretend not to understand things, who both run this country and occupy enormous positions in the British media, never seem to admit to the rest of us when the facts have changed. So the pandemic-induced craze for working from home had one fly in the ointment of its efficacy, and that fly was people who had to work from home but didn't want to. That they intrigue me. Do they actually exist? People who had to work from home during the lockdown but didn't want to. Because that was the only vaguely reasonable rationale I could see for getting all cross and bothered about the increase in the number of people doing some work or all of their work from home. That when it was compulsory, when it was imposed, it was hard, very hard. In fact, for me, it was impossible not to feel sorry for people who didn't really want to work from home but had to. There were issues of loneliness, issues of inconvenience, issues of overcrowding. There were all sorts of issues. But now that has stopped because workplaces are open again. Flexibility has been introduced, but the idea of being compelled to work from home when you didn't want to, I would cautiously suggest has been completely demolished for two reasons. The most obvious one being that the workplaces are open again, and the second most obvious being the fact that we've got such high employment rates now in this country that it is essentially a seller's market. It's probably easier at the moment to find another job if you don't like the terms and conditions of your current job than it was before the pandemic. So it may change as energy costs increase. You don't want to have, and winter comes around again, you probably don't want to have the heating on at home, but it would save you 50 quid a day on the commute. So it's going to be swings and roundabouts. My RAC sub has just gone up, by the way, by about 25%. And the reason they've given is inflation and the cost of fuel. So just another example of something you don't immediately think of being a consequence of the cost of fuel. But of course, it's a consequence of the cost of fuel. So I think it's pretty obvious why British workers are still working from home. It's also obvious why the Daily Mail have to describe it as the worst in Europe, when in fact it's probably good news for employers, employee alike. But I'd still have some room on the switch, well, not the switchboard at the moment, but there's still some room in my mind for more answers to the question of why this continues to be something that the usual suspects try to turn into a fight. And it takes us back perhaps to the conversation about getting fined £10 for missing NHS appointments. Lewis texted in to say, clue, people like to punish other people. And the view is that those missing appointments are also probably those on benefits or similar. Both are wrong, but it's what voters will think, so it resonates. I'm a Conservative, James, and I agree that wasted appointments need to be fixed. But my motivation is wanting a more efficient service and not a waste of this fantastic resource. I love that phrase. People like to punish other people. I think we probably all do, even those of us who like to pat ourselves on the back for being all warm and cuddly. I like to punish racists, if you like, or I may like to punish misogynists or proto-fascists. But not because I enjoy the act of punishment, but because I abhor the practice of racism, misogyny and proto-fascism. But some people love the invitation to just make life harder for others. I think that's probably a large part of it. Julian Suffolk says it's punishing the feckless who we, meaning Conservative members that Rishi Sunak is appealing to, are infinitely better than. And James takes it further. It's bashing the poor again, James, because they're the ones most likely not to turn up. It's just camouflage for bashing the lower classes. So where does the demonisation of people still working from home come from? The claim that they're lazy or the claim that they're work shy. I mean, it's obviously and patently untrue. When it comes to the media, I'm never quite sure about whether people are pretending not to understand this when just seeking to give you an invitation to punish others, or whether they are actually too stupid to understand how much the world has changed. It'd be a bit like talking about how easy it is to get to NHS appointments if you've never been near public transport for 50 years, especially not in a rural area, or you've got no idea how much it might cost. But on this one, I'm fascinated by two things. The first is the transformation of society and the fact that you are still doing a lot of your work from home, and I want to know why. 0345 6060 973. And the second is, why is it still a thing? Why is it still a thing? Why are essentially Brexit-supporting Boris Johnson fans in the British media, most obviously the Daily Mail, still having a fit of the vapours over this profound but arguably inevitable and permanent change to the British worker's life? 0345 6060 973. We may get more interested in the second question than we are in the first as the hour progresses. So don't hold back on that. Why are the Brexit-supporting Boris Johnson fans so cross with you because you still work from home a few days a week? 034, well, you know the number. It's 1216. It is 12:18. I don't know if anyone's been a little bit worried about Boris Johnson's workload. He had a big party at the weekend in the grounds of a Conservative donor. You'd think, there's so dignity involved in that as well. You'd think, if you're going to have a party, at least I don't know how the payment was arranged, but I suppose he hasn't got a home, has he, to have a party and can't have it at checkout. Anyway, if like me, you're worried that he's been overdoing it a bit lately with all those sort of Mr. Ben style visits to army sites and airports and stuff, you'll be delighted to hear he's about to have a little holiday. He's due to take some leave from the middle of this week. So anyone like me worried that Boris Johnson might have been overdoing it lately, you'll be delighted to know that he is taking a bit of a holiday now. A holiday from what? A job he's already resigned from. Only in Brexit Britain could a Prime Minister who's already resigned go on holiday. Why do you think he didn't turn up at the football? Or indeed the opening of the Commonwealth Games? I'll give you a clue. Rhymes with moo. Back to working from home. Rachel is in Brackley. I think, and you'll be more aware of this than I am, Rachel. Aren't Kidderminster Harriers away at Brackley on the first day of the season?
Oh, I have to be honest and say football's not really my sport.
What are you talking after last night? I mean, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
What is just it's lasted 2 hours now, and you've just popped everybody's balloon. Everybody's balloon. All right. No, anyway, I think I've got my dates a bit backwards on that. I think we're with you on the 29th of August, but obviously I won't be seeing you there. What made you pick up the phone, Rachel?
Just talking about the working from home.
Yes.
My last company, they shut our office at the start of the pandemic, like a lot of people. We worked from home. It went well. Eventually, they wanted to open the office and get us to go back in.
Yes.
They left it up to us how often we wanted to go in, so we all went in 1 day a week. I had to commute by bus.
What were you doing before? Were you commuting by bus before?
Yes.
Right, okay. Fair enough.
It's just over an hour each way.
That's a long time, isn't it? You don't realise until it's not necessary what a big chunk of your day it is, do you?
Yeah, exactly. Then they changed the bus timetable and it became impractical to get to the office by bus. So I started car sharing with my other half, but that meant I had to take him to work and then go to my office and then leave my office and go back and get him and then come home. So that was adding even more time. So eventually it got to the point where I just felt it necessary to change jobs. And now I work for a company where we don't have an office at all. So I'm working from home permanently.
And are you happy like that?
Yes.
That's the thing, isn't it? So the idea that British workers are the worst in Europe for refusing to return to the office bears absolutely no resemblance to the reality of your experience.
Yeah, like there's definitely pros and cons.
Of course
Originally,
there are.
I was a little bit worried about loneliness being at home on my own.
Yes.
But the pros far outweigh that cons. The amount I can do now with that extra 10, 12 hours a week I'm getting is for me worth it.
And I know, and it's perfectly sort of lonely. Yeah, lonely. Did you say loneliness or laziness?
Loneliness.
Oh, I thought you said laziness.
It can be a little bit lonely. You're like, oh, like my husband's gone, and now I've not spoken to anyone all day.
Yeah. That's not ideal.
No.
But as you say, the pros on the other side of it weigh out the cons. Any thoughts on where this impetus comes, why the negativity being directed at people like you? Where does it come from?
I don't know, maybe just a feeling that if you can't see what someone's up to, that must mean that they're not doing anything.
Maybe, but I mean, that's a little bit 19th century, isn't it? It's almost as if they're unaware of the existence of the internet. Rachel, thank you. 22 minutes after 12 is the time. Kay's in Eastbourne. Kay, what would you like to say?
Oh, hiya.
Hello,
My husband's been working from home since the pandemic.
Has he refused to go back to the office despite them begging him every day because he's one of these dreadful lazy workers who are among the worst in Europe for refusing to return to the office?
No, his company have actually provided all the workers the option to work from home. Obviously, I mean, he will have to travel into London, so it's many hours on the train.
How many hours?
It could be two.
Coming in from Eastbourne. Did he used to do that every day?
Every day. And
Eastbourne to London.
Eastbourne to London, yep. And sometimes the trains would be cancelled and he'd have to try and get a cab into work. It was just so costly, really costly. But, he's home now and we've got twins who are just turned 10 on the 29th of July. So he's able to kind of help with the school run, which takes a little bit of pressure off me. He's actually taken his little lunch break and he's off to the shops to do some shopping for us for dinner. So it's
There's no downside. I mean, a little bit. You miss out on the sociability, or he misses out a bit on the sociability side of it. But if he's commuting to and from Eastbourne every day, he's not exactly going out for dinner with his colleagues every evening, is he? He's just having a bit of that dreadful word banter in the workplace. I mean, you're a really good example of the geography of the United Kingdom being part of this issue. So the fact that so many people working in London come from so far away, and therefore the bigger the gap between your home and your work, the more likely you will be to embrace the possibility of working from home. If he could walk to work every day, he'd probably still be in the office quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, probably, but it's, with the trains the way they are at the minute, and the cost of it. I mean, we're looking at about $6,000 a year, and it's a lot of money.
Savings, and then I mean, there may be some extra costs involved in energy and heating and electricity and what have you, but it's probably not going to. It's probably not going to eat up $6,000 a year. What's not, I mean, and it's reasonable, I think, is that he doesn't get a piece of the rent that the employer is now saving by not having people in the office. So they're probably quids in as well. The only person losing out is the commercial landlord.
Yep, that's it.
Which possibly answers the question of why people are so keen to give a coating to people like your husband. But why would ordinary people be doing it? As opposed to actual newspaper owners. If I own a newspaper, I can get people to write about it. But if it about this job, why would I have a go at Kay's husband? I'm not a commercial landlord. I don't get any gain out of this. 12:25 is the time. Kerry is in Worcester. Kerry, what would you like to say?
I just wanted to say that really it's a bigger issue than just whether people are going into work or working from home.
Yes.
We don't provide the infrastructure to allow for all of the flexibility that people need. And from my perspective, that's in the context of having a child with special needs who goes to school where there is no wraparound care. That's because it's highly expensive to provide that for children who have special needs.
Mm.
So I am not enabled by our society to work away from home. And I've had to make the conscious decision of having a home-based job.
Yes.
And in order to facilitate basically having a child.
What? I mean, forgive me if I'm being a bit slow on the uptake. I completely understand the situation you've described. But in the context of the conversation that we're having, you're simply pointing out that for some people it may be preferable, but for some it's actually necessary. Yeah,
absolutely. For some people, they really don't have much of a choice. And to attack people for that decision, or to attack people for actually just wanting flexibility in their lives.
I presume that your angry biggins would say at this point, "Oh no, I didn't mean you. I mean all the other ones. I mean all the other ones, the ones who are doing their sort of, I don't know, doing their nails instead of. I mean, they don't. None of these targets exist. But when you're presented with a real target, particularly one in a situation as poignant as yours, then you have to backtrack on it and say, "Oh no, I didn't mean you. I didn't mean you, home worker. I meant all the other home workers over there. Look over there, not you, them over there." But you feel attacked, and that's the point. It's ugly.
Absolutely, and more than that, I feel unsupported and attacked.
Yeah. Okay. So unsupported because you have no choice and there's nothing in place to help people like you, and then attacked because of the subtext that somehow you've made this decision as a result of fecklessness or laziness.
Absolutely. And I work very hard. And, when we had the lockdowns of schools and I had my child at home and I still worked full time, never had furlough, they were difficult times.
Yeah.
And I'm never off duty.
What do you do? You mean because you've got your child to look after?
Yeah.
And the childminder went out of business?
Yeah, my childminder went out of business within a month or two of the pandemic.
And not come back. So you've had to completely turn your working life upside down in order to accommodate that change in your life.
Absolutely. We had it all sorted. Yeah. It was, they'd had him since he was 8 months old. It was all great. It's very, very hard to get childminding for a child with special needs.
I'm sure it is.
Our school has a 15-mile catchment radius.
Right.
So you're not looking at a local person who does a crocodile round to the school, which is what most childminders do.
Right, yes.
And I'm not the only family that will be in this position. And that's just for my child. There's, other parents who can't afford wraparound care because they don't get paid enough.
No, I've listened. You raise very valid points that are not, they're not going to be pertinent to everybody listening by any stretch of the imagination, but the ones to whom they are pertinent are going to be more pertinent than almost all of the issues that we discuss under this umbrella. And where does it come from, this desire to demonise people like Kerry? Simon suggests in a tweet, it's simple, James. It's the old "if I couldn't do it, why should you be able to do it" argument, which you do hear an awful lot, actually. But I guess either you feel that way about the world or you don't. And if you don't, it's very hard to understand the people who do. Can we find anyone, do you think, who is refusing to return to the office, to use the Daily Mail's language on this one? British workers are the worst in Europe for refusing to return to the office. It conjures up in my mind an image of people who are sitting at home in a state of constant warfare with their employer, which seems to me, and I'm not an employer, but it seems to me to be an unlikely model for a happy and harmonious relationship. I just don't believe they exist. They're yet more figments of the Daily Mail's fevered imagination. It's coming up to 12:30. I'd like more answers to the question of why. Simon's answer might fill a lot of this gap. It's simple. It's the old "if I couldn't do it, why should you be able to?" But it must be a little bit more sophisticated than that, because these people embrace progress in other ways. They're not going to insist on driving a Morris Marina, are they? Because that's all that was available in my day. So they'll embrace some changes of modernity. They don't all want to live like their granddads lived or their grandmas lived. But on working from home in particular, why did it become, even now when Jacob Rees-Mogg sticks his oar in, it becomes part of the culture war, the so-called culture war? 12:30 is the time. Amelia Cox is here now with your headline. It is 12:33. Speaking of working from home, not something a railway worker can do. Do you remember when all of the people who are inexplicably and somewhat unpleasantly determined to demonise everyone who works from home pretended that it was because they really cared about railway workers? And then railway workers ask for their support and their help in an industrial action, and suddenly railway workers are not people that these people care about at all. It's an odd one, that, isn't it? Industrial action ongoing, of course, for both the RMT and ASLEF. Possibly other unions as well. But it's the fraudulence of these political positions, these editorial positions, that are so hilarious. British workers are the worst in Europe for refusing to return to the office. The laptop class are working from home when hard-working railway drivers, hard-working train drivers and railway workers have no choice but to turn up at work. The railway workers are going on strike. Those lazy, good-for-nothing railway workers, who do they think they are? Absolutely ridiculous that they should be demanding safeguards in the workplace or pledges that no one's going to face compulsory redundancy. But I thought you said they were really important upholders of British society who deserved your support. Yeah, but that's only as an excuse when I'm attacking other people. I don't actually give a flying fig about railway workers. I just pretend to when I'm attacking home workers. I didn't just say that out loud, did I? It's so transparent and so obvious. It would be funny if it didn't actually involve people like our last caller feeling attacked and feeling demonised. When does a railway worker cease to be someone that you offer support for? Well, that's easy, isn't it? It's when they actually need my support. Oh, okay, right. Jonathan's in Doncaster. Jonathan, what's going on?
Hi, James. So I'm a home worker myself. I've worked at home for the past 2 years, ever since the pandemic started.
Yes.
I work in an office, so a lot of my duties can be conducted from home with a laptop. The thing that we're kind of thinking about was, when you brought this topic up, I was thinking about, and you've just spoken about it briefly then, how you spoke about the treatment of rail workers with the RMT strike last week. And it seemed like a very similar kind of mindset, in that you attributed it to why should anybody be begrudging of people that are trying to fight for better pay, better working conditions for themselves and things like that.
I forgot why I introduced the railway workers into the conversation, and it is to plug the interview I did with Mick Lynch on Friday, which is this week's episode of Full Disclosure. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to correct my own forgetfulness. Carry on.
Okay. And the main thing that I was thinking about was it's not the same circumstances, of course it's not, but it kind of, maybe some of the animosity towards people who work from home and it gets brought up by, people who work from home might be lazy. One of your other callers said that when people aren't under observation, they must not be working. And for me personally anyway, I can't speak to other people because I'm not them, but I'm far more productive working from home without the distractions of an office.
Well, I think you would. I mean, almost inevitably you would, because you've got. It's easier to focus. I guess it depends. If you've got little kids running around the place, or your Amazon deliveries arriving every 10 minutes, or there might be circumstances in which the distraction is there. But your boss, the first person who's going to notice if your productivity has plummeted is your employer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I ever decided, you know what, I'm going to sack this afternoon off and I'm not going to do anything, my employer will be on the phone after a couple of hours going, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And,
whereas if you're at the office and you've left your jacket over the back of your chair before you go out to the park for a bit of a snooze, and they might just think you're busy, or you're down in the post room or doing something else like that.
Exactly. And I think, going back to that mindset, I think it is just, I think you attribute it to, it couldn't be anything other than jealousy. Now, I understand that there are going to be professions that can't work from home, such as if you work
railway workers.
If you work in transport. If you work in logistics,
warehouse, or you're doing deliveries, there's all sorts of things. Or if you're a doctor or a nurse, or, a radio presenter, you could kind of work from home, but I really wouldn't want to. Of course there are, but and actually I haven't come across, and I've got 2 phone lines free, so let's try and find out if people are envious, if there is a bitterness towards home workers from other workers, because all I'm getting is bitterness from the media trying to pit people against people. I don't imagine there are any train drivers out. If you want to drive a train, it's because you want to drive a train. You don't want to sit at home on a simulation. It just seems odd to me. But I don't want to put words in people's mouths. If you are actually jealous or envious of people who can work from home, for the main and simple reason that you can't, then 03456060973 is the number you need. Finally, Jonathan, where does the sort of media impulse come from? The newspaper columnists, my favourite being Richard Littlejohn in the Daily Mail, who writes his column about how British people should all stop working from his home in Florida. Where does that motivation come from? What's in it for them?
I think there's one massive turning point in the media that kind of came out through the pandemic, and it was when we were leaving lockdown, and it was when Boris Johnson came out and said, we need to save PrEP. It was all about making sure that we protect commercial landlords' profits.
Yeah, probably. And I'm not first. They came for the commercial landlord, and I said nothing because all they do is take, and they don't make any other really meaningful contribution to society, and they certainly wouldn't cross the road to help me out if I was on fire. But that's just a broad and unfair generalisation. I'm sure there are some lovely people in that category as well. But the idea that I should be paying X pounds a week in order to commute in and out of town solely to keep the business of a already very wealthy commercial landlord afloat seems a little bit silly. But I don't know, maybe we're being unfair to the sort of cheerleaders in the British media who are barking at people like Jonathan for the crime of working from home, or, to put it in Daily Mailese, refusing to return to the office. So far, we are failing to find anyone who is refusing to return to the office, despite the fact that their employer wants them to, 03456060973, or someone who doesn't work from home but is spitting nails, is green with envy at all those scumbags who can. Those are the people who we need to find. Dave is in Barmston, near Bridlington. Dave, what would you like to say?
Well, I suppose I'm in the middle, because I have the option where I could work from home, but I choose not to.
Right.
But one thing, a couple of things. I was talking to your researcher, and you hit the nail on the head. One of the issues that I see from what I'd call the blue collar workers, to the white collar workers, because there's a stark contrast now, and a lot of it's around flexibility of working, or working from home, because your blue collar workers simply can't do that. They've got fixed shifts and everything. But going back to the point that you said about
not just blue collar, that would also apply to doctors and teachers and lots of other jobs as well. But I take your point.
Yeah, I take that. But I'm thinking, if you think back to the original lockdowns and the working from home,
yes,
the people working from home automatically got at least a 10% pay rise on the back of it, just with the I know you brought up about the cost of working from home, but the cost of going to work way outweigh. I mean, I think it's an average of about 10-15% of people are better off.
So they saved that money, and they continue to do so.
On a huge amount. So you've got your people that are doing your shift work, that are doing their hourly rate that have to be there on time, not like floating. Like we've got the floaters of the working from homes, because our company does a policy now where you must come in 2 days of the working week. The rest of the week you don't have to. So we've got people floating in and out. And you've got the what I call the base staff that are still on site that need to speak to somebody. And they're saying, "Oh, where's such and such? Oh, they're working from home today. Oh, I need them to show them this. Do you know when they're coming back in?
Yeah.
Well, they might be coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
that causes problems. That's a proper tension.
It does, and it's more of a frustration than anything. There is an element of jealousy because if people think that somebody else is getting something they're not, it's an automatic.
Yeah, of course it does.
Anyway.
Yeah, we've all got that button.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did you make the choice that you made?
I needed to. Well, there's two reasons. One is perception. I think the team and the culture of the team is much better if they see their leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit old school. I prefer to get in before people and maybe leave. We're one of the last to leave. I mean, that's just a culture thing.
Yeah.
That's the way I am.
Fair enough.
And I think that makes a big difference. And we're talking about mental health, and it's easy.
It's horses for courses, isn't it? Is what you're saying essentially. Horses for this suits you, and it doesn't suit everyone. Are any of your colleagues refusing to return to the office?
No, we haven't had that. I mean, I think. Well,
that's odd because the Daily Mail are convinced that the country's full of them.
I think you're just generalising there.
How dare you? You'll be accusing them of making stuff up next, Dave.
Never. That'll never happen.
God forbid.
But no. I just think basically, it's a package. We're getting a line between the two types of workers. If somebody, we've got this perception. The media, especially the media, have this where everybody works out of an office. Everybody, where you'll probably find that 70%, maybe 75% of the UK in employment are actually, be it food processing, shops, whatever.
I dispute. Yeah, bringing retail into it actually probably changes things slightly, but I suspect it's lower because we rely very heavily on services now for our economy, as we discovered in the run-up to Brexit. So call centres, all of that can be done from home. That's almost like a crossover between blue and white collar work, isn't it? Some of that.
Yeah, I could agree with that. You could do that. You could definitely do that job from home.
Yeah.
But it's about having people on point.
It's about physical products, Dave.
It is, yes.
Isn't it? Really, if you're working with a physical product, whether it's a cheese sandwich or a pair of shoes. Because some of that can be online, can't it, as well?
Yeah, that's it. And we've got this current situation now where a lot of people are sort of, we've got the rail workers strike and what have you, because they want a real terms pay rise in proportion to inflation. Well, if you reflect back over the past 2.5 years, those working from home have had that pay rise.
That's a really good point. And in fact, I'd wonder whether, because I don't think that the union leaders have picked up on that. One of the more stupid arguments I found was Grant Shapps saying they can't have a pay rise because they got furloughed. And you're like, well, hang on a minute.
Hang on.
But in fact, they could come back and say it's all very well for people like Grant Shapps who would have run his dodgy, weird internet businesses under false names, flogging get-rich-quick schemes. He could have done all that from home and he'd have got a pay rise during lockdown because he didn't have his commute. We had to get to work. We still have to get to work and back on our pre-lockdown wages, and therefore we deserve a pay rise.
Exactly. Well, that's the point of one of your callers earlier, that their husband was saving £5,000 a year, not going on. That's £5,000 at the end after the deductions.
Yes, you're right. It's an exceptional sum. The Eastbourne to London and London to Eastbourne commute is a fairly hefty one. What would be the equivalent of that in Barmston, Dave? You'd be.
Well, we can't get to. I mean, we don't even get trains. We're not really. The levelling up hasn't really hit Barmston yet.
Well, don't hold your breath, will you? It's not coming up anytime soon. So I'm just trying to think what it was. It's Driffield, is it? Is that the?
It's near Bridlington actually. But going back to that, if you think of the associated costs of going to work,
I hadn't, and that's a really good call. That's a really good, completely different perspective on things. A little bit of envy, but actually not envy born of thinking other people are getting an easy ride of it. Envy born of the fact that next door works from home now, and he doesn't have to pay his travel costs, and you don't work from home, and you still do have to pay your travel costs. Ergo, he's had a pay rise, she's had a pay rise, and you haven't. Thank you, Dave. 12:46 is the time. 12:48 is the time. I'm going to cross quickly and live to Trafalgar Square in London, where the Lionesses are on the stage being asked some questions by the inimitable Alex Scott.
An iconic moment. But for you in your journey through the injuries and getting back to be a part of this team and having that moment, how special is that for you?
Yeah, so special to share this moment with such an amazing bunch of girls.
It's bloody Kelly, isn't it?
I'm proud to wear this badge, but I'm even more proud to share the pitch with such an unbelievable group of players and an unbelievable set of staff.
Chloe, as well, we saw that when you kicked it in, the goal, then there was a delay with the celebration, and you were saying, is it in? Is it allowed?
I thought she was giving a free kick, and I was like, is it in? Is it a goal? And yeah, that's when it went crazy.
Talk to me about some of the celebrations in the changing room afterwards. What's going on?
I ain't stopped dancing, honestly. I ain't stopped. My feet just keep going. Everyone's just absolutely buzzing, and we had a good night last night. But some a bit worse for wear this morning.
I want to come down, pass the mics down to Lucy and Jill over here, because I suppose Lucy runs everyone.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Let's go.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Lucy, you said you've won every individual honour there can be, but you wanted this one around your neck.
I've not got golden boot, have I, though?
She is the striker. You wanted this one around your neck. You finally got it in an England shirt. How are you feeling?
On top of the world, on top of Europe. Another trophy, but the best one by far. There's still one more that we can still get our hands on next year.
That's why she's a winner. That is why she's a winner. You've been a part of many squads, England squads. What makes this team so special, Luce?
Jill Scott.
Jill Scott, you are loved and adored. Been around the team, the Lionesses, for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And this is your moment also.
A lot of years, yeah.
This is your moment. This is my perfect moment with you.
You're doing great up here, Lucy. You're doing great. No, it's just been absolutely fantastic, I think, just to be part of this team. I know I got asked, in an interview, which players are you looking out for in the tournament? And I'm like, I train with the best players in the world every single day, and it's so tough trying to keep up with them, especially when I think some of them are half my age now. So, yeah, just an incredible group, and I'm just so honoured to play any little part in this team.
You played a huge part. And I think that's what makes this team so special. Every single person played their part. You said the other day, you've got some former Lionesses out there that have played with you, been there. You sent them a special message the other day.
Yeah, absolute legends, including yourself, Alex, as well. I think everyone who's put the shirt on, I've said it a few times now, but just everybody that believed in women's football. We just want it to be football, and hopefully that's now how it's perceived to around the world, I suppose. But yeah, all the former players, they know who they are. I think Rachel Brown somewhere.
She's there.
But yeah, just everybody that's worked so hard. We feel so honoured that we kind of did that last lap, but it's going to be the first of many, hopefully.
Yes, we absolutely love that. Let me bring forward Beth. Come on, step forward.
Come on, Beth.
Player of the tournament.
Yeah, wow. I didn't expect it. I think the guy pulled me to the side and told me then, but yeah, I'm just so proud of just being a part of this team. The player of the tournament means nothing to me, and the medal and being part of this team means more.
You're getting emotional.
I am. And I've lost my voice, as you can tell.
You have every right to. And Beth, that's the thing as well, that so many special journeys, you got left out. You came back and you've shown the world what you're capable of.
Yeah, sometimes football sucks, but I worked hard, and I feel so lucky to be a part of this team and being part of this group, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Here, look, in front of everyone in Trafalgar Square. This is iconic. Well, I tell you something, what we're not going to tire of seeing, and we're going to see it all over again, is lifting that trophy. So it's time to introduce you to the stage right now, bringing out the Euro 2022 trophy, everyone. Lola made her England debut Sisters Under-16 tournament. And Rahima, an 11-year-old graduate of the FA's Wildcat programme. Well done, you two. Big round of applause, please. Leah, we see you do it yesterday, but it's time that I ask you to step forward, please, and you do it all over again. Lift that trophy. Oh.
I'm just reflecting on the fact that if this wasn't a soundproof studio, I could probably hear. Just been told to describe what I'm seeing, but I'm tempted to sing along, actually. I think that would probably be quite unprofessional. So that is live from London's Trafalgar Square, where the Lionesses are on stage. And I'm sure they won't mind me saying this, displaying all the signs of having had an extremely long and celebratory night. Sunglasses very much to the fore. And fireworks going off now, confetti falling from the roof, and the players taking it in turns to lift the trophy in the magnificent theatre of Trafalgar Square. Here comes the manager. It's fantastic. They're basically just passing the trophy among all of the players and all of the staff.
This was a dream, but it's not. This is not a dream anymore.
Yeah. Dreams turn into reality. I think that's one of the most inspiring things. We would have been inspired by so much growing up, but now, hopefully, there's a generation of people that will be inspired by us.
You're all an inspiration to everyone. Everything that you've done. Right, everyone? Do you know what? It's time to get this party started. There we have it. England have won the Euros.
She's talking about Sheila Fogarty's show. I've got to walk through this to get to our other studio where I'm recording a podcast with Professor Brian Cox in about an hour's time. So I think I might join in. Magnificent stuff, all live there from Trafalgar Square, where to where I think Sheila Fogarty will no doubt be redirecting your attention at the very top of her programme. I think even though it's one of the most interesting interviews I've ever conducted, it would be a little incongruous to end the programme by playing you 3 minutes of my interview with the RMT leader, Mick Lynch, at this point in proceedings. So I'll spare you that pleasure until tomorrow, unless, of course, you've downloaded it by then, which I would urge you to do so. Very, very interesting man. Much, and indeed, you probably know that already from his media appearances, but I was very keen to spend a little bit more time with him than would be available one-on-one in a radio studio, and it was time extremely well spent, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Those scenes there in Trafalgar Square, they're absolutely bonkers. I said to you at the top of the show that I wondered halfway through the tournament whether and I like football, as you know. I'm not a sort of every away game or even every home game, given that my team play out of Kidderminster, but I do love football, and I get very invested in international tournaments, and I did just wonder halfway through whether the fact that it was the women's team, in which I haven't been invested for years, I haven't watched them come close and lose on many, many times in the past, as closely as I've watched the men, whether that would in any way diminish the joy if they did happen to go all the way. But absolutely not. Possibly even more exciting because of the originality or novelty of it, because of the fact that these are people who in the main are not household names and have not, and now they're all just taking it in turns to come to the front of the stage and do a little bit of a boogie. Absolute scenes down in London's Trafalgar Square, flags waving, hundreds if not thousands of people present, a little bit of a sing-along, some grim karaoke unfolding, and just an air of joy, happiness and exuberance, which hopefully will continue to infect the rest of the nation for the foreseeable future. Quite how I'm going to get through this crowd on my way to Millbank in in an hour's time or so. Is
just sing and dance.
I think I will.
And bob, and you'll get there.
I'm a bit overdressed for the first time in my life.
I was at the train station on the way in this morning, and there was this tiny little girl of about no more than 4 years of age, and she was tiny, real tot. And she just suddenly, I only noticed her when she just ran up to her brother who was standing near me. He was about 10, and she just went, "I'm so excited!" And they were all. I checked with their mum and dad. They were all on their way to. They're in there. They're in that
melee in Trafalgar Square. So fantastic exciting stuff. That is it from me for another day. We'll do it all again tomorrow morning from 10. And as you've gathered, Sheila's here, gathered. 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 Sheila's here, gathered.